Hi folks, in this video we're going to look at one of my favourite cult bikes of the 1980s, and that was the RD350 LC. Now this was the first liquid cooled two-stroke that Yamaha produced, and it ran from 1980 to 1984, and then they updated it to the power valve version, which I also had a few of them as well. As I say, I was a 17-year-old teenager when I bought my first one, and that was in 1982, and I had to get my father to go guarantor, as I was just an apprentice electrician at the time, so I was very lucky to own a brand new one then. I've had a few over the years, and I've had a few of the air-cooled models before that, the RD350 and the RD400, but the RD350 LC became my favourite bike and is still one of my favourite bikes today. Now the bike you're going to see me with now was actually my bike, and I sold this a few years ago now, so this is a little bit of an old recording, but this was the last one I owned, and it was a lovely bike in very nice restored condition. I didn't do the restoration on it, but as I say, that went on to be sold, and I'm now without it, and I wish I still had it. So there we go, this is my 350 LC. Enjoy.
What model is it?
This is a 1982 RD350 LC.
Have you had one before?
Well, back in the early 80s, I mean, this was the bike to have. I started off with a Fizzy when I was 16, quite like many teenagers back then. I then progressed to an RD250 air-cooled, and when I saw one of these, I thought, must have one. It was either that or getting onto a bigger bike, which is like a Z1 or a 900 or whatever. And these had quite a reputation back then, and I thought to myself, well, I've got to have a go at one, and I had a go at one, and once you've driven one, it's just unbelievable, the power when it comes in. For such a small light bike, I mean, you can have the front wheel up in first and second gear very easily.
Is this an original example?
It's not quite in standard trim. There's a few alterations which I probably would have done back in the early 80s if I would have had the money. The things this has got different from standard is the seat is different. This is a non-standard seat. This is a 2/4 seat. It's actually got chrome handlebars where they'd normally be black. It's got all-speed expansion chambers on it, which again was a sort of a mod that I actually done that back when I had one back in 1982. It's got rear sets, plus it's got a chrome rad grille on it. It's all stuff which you'd normally sort of do to like the bike when you first got it, basically, if you was a boy racer like myself.
What's it worth?
Well, to give you an idea of what the sort of price range is, when I bought a brand new one back in 1982, I paid, well I say I got it on HP, £1,130. That was the price for the 350, and the LC 250 was £1,030, so there was only basically £100 different from the 250 and the 350 models. I've had this one probably for about 4 years now. It was in this condition when I actually bought it. I actually swapped it for a power valve. I had two power valve 350 LCs which basically needed refurbing, and I actually swapped this one for the two power valves, so it didn't actually cost me nothing. But I mean, in today's market, I suppose you're looking at probably about £2,000, 2,200. They've actually gone up, as I say, over the last few years. It's all us 40-somethings which are buying these up again and reliving our youth, basically.
What parts are hard to get?
The sort of parts that are hard to get for it are the original exhaust pipes. You can find them new. A lot of them seem to be imported from Germany. I mean, on eBay they can command sort of up to about £500 for a set of exhaust pipes, original condition ones. Again, the sort of things that were thrown away, which is a centre stand, that's another item which is very hard to get hold of. Again, you're looking at probably £80 on eBay to get a new centre stand. The radiator cowlings, I think you can actually still get them. I mean, they're not all that dear. Clocks in decent condition tend to hold their price. You can pay about £60 to £70 for a decent set of clocks. There are a lot out there, and I think you can actually get the cases for the clocks. You can get them new still. I mean, bearing in mind, back in the days, these were really fresh by teenagers, and they was normally sent up the road, and they've suffered a lot from scuff marks and body pieces that were broken, side panels, etc. But as I say, on eBay, most of the parts are actually accessible, and you could probably rebuild one from parts off of eBay actually. For the purists out there, in other words, the ones who actually rebuild these to concours condition, everything has to be right basically. For example, the engine numbers and the frame numbers must match. The 350's numbers started with 4LO as opposed to the 250, which started 4L1. So if the engine had a 4L1 and the frame had a 4L1, that is basically a 250. And likewise, if they started with 4LO, that means that they was a 350. So a lot of people actually uprated the 250 and put the 350 edge of barrels on, put another disc on the front, and also changed the rear wheel for the wider cush drive one. And that basically is the same. But as I say, the purists out there who restore these, they like to see the 4LO number and also matching numbers on the engine and the frame.
What modifications is there?
Well, as I say, I mean, this is in standard trim. The bits that are on this one are the bits I would have probably had done to it back in 1982. And that is the all-speed expansion chambers, the actual chrome rad grille which is on there. It's got the Goodrich brake hoses, which are an uprated brake hose, which is better for more pressure. You can apply more pressure with less hand pressure to the brakes. The actual 2/4 seat is not standard, as I said earlier on. You may or may not have put clip-ons on it. I mean, basically, I mean, these things, once you hit 6 to 7 grand in first gear, I mean, if you've got the upright handlebars, which came with the bike, similar to the ones that I've got on here, basically, I mean, you'd have the front wheel up in the air. So as what people used to do was also put clip-ons on as a way of keeping the front down. But to my way of thinking, it wasn't an LC if the front wheel wasn't up in the air.
Did the model change for its lifespan?
It did. It didn't actually change very much. It had quite a short lifespan. It started in 1980, and they brought the RD350 Power Valve LC out in 84, 83, 84. But as this started off, I mean, there are a few fundamental changes. It was prone to cracking the exhaust. The first ones that was out around the headers of the exhausts. As a result of that, what Yamaha did was make the exhaust with a thicker collar. So as I say, a lot of the W registrations, and you even had them on the V registrations, they did suffer with the cracking of the actual exhaust flanges. One other detail change which they did do, if you've got the earlier framed model, the 81, if you look underneath, there was no engine tie bars. 1982 they actually remedied this, where they put these actual tie bars in from the frame to the engine, and that aided the cracking of the exhaust, because the engine does tend to rock about a lot on tick-over, for example. There was a small problem with the carburation when they first come out, but again, that was a recall and a modification to I think it was the jetting, if I remember rightly. But I mean, over that, the changes over its lifespan was basically colour changes. I mean, they basically got it right the first time, Yamaha, with this water-cooled Yamaha, basically. Well, the main competition was the actual larger four-strokes of the time. I mean, basically, this thing, when it accelerated in the first couple of gears, it was so vicious that, I mean, you could put it on the back wheel very easily. And used to, up to about 80 miles an hour, I suppose, you could basically surprise quite a lot of 550s and even a few 750s.
How does it compare to the bikes of today?
This is a classic bike, basically, now. I mean, it doesn't really compare with today's bikes. I mean, I've had R1s, I've had YZF 750s, I've had all the big Yamahas of today. And to be honest with you, I mean, the fun about riding a bike like this is that you can get the thrill of the acceleration, but not excessively break any speed limits. As I say, you open the throttle on an R1, for example, and I mean, you're basically going to say bye-bye to your licence. And what with speed cameras and speed traps, you know, that's taking all the fun out of cycling. But you can actually drive these bikes and get the thrill of the acceleration and basically still enjoy motorcycling. Right, so let's hear this start up then. Well, there you go. That was my 350 LC Yamaha. And as I say, I've owned a few over the years. And one of the greatest things about that is to get the front wheel up in the air. I remember doing that many, many times. And you had to be very careful that you didn't flip it. And like many of the two-strokes of the era now, they command absolutely silly money, thousands and thousands of pounds. So if you're lucky enough to ever have owned one, or you relive your youth to go and find out that you want to buy another one, they are still out there. Parts are still readily available, and they are still great fun. They don't match today's super bikes, but it's a sort of bike where you can have a ride in the countryside, experiment with the power band, and still feel the thrill of an acceleration like you do with two-stroke power bands, without excessively breaking any speed limits. So there you go, that's the 350 LC. We'll see you again in the next video when I'll show you my old RD400. So keep watching. Glad you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to rate, comment and subscribe, and also share my videos if you do like them. And we'll see you again in the next video. Bye for now.